All right, chat. We are back here with a very special guest on today's episode, Nicolás Ernesto Maduro, the son of captured, kidnapped Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro. Nicolás Ernesto Maduro is also a member of the Venezuelan National Assembly, where he works as a deputy. He is also the vice president of the National Religious Affairs of PSUV, which is the Socialist Party of Venezuela. So, Nicolás, thank you so much for joining me today. I want to express my condolences for what has happened to your father and to the Venezuelan people and to Celia Flores. I was disgusted by it, and I am very appreciative to have you here today to talk.
Gracias, Jackson. Thank you. Es un honor estar aquí.
Thank you, Jackson. It is an honor to be here in this program. Us here in Venezuela, we're with a sea of emotions. We have been under attack since January 3rd, when they kidnapped President Nicolás Maduro. They were hoping for the country to collapse, and that didn't happen. Venezuela has remained stable, and we're fighting, and we have faith and hope that we will bring him back, and we will liberate Nicolás Maduro and Celia Flores.
Why do you think Venezuela was targeted at this time? It seems as though things were going on the right track for Venezuela as a country. Things were improving. So who's threatened by a successful and sovereign Venezuela?
Mira, nosotros hemos conseguido a lo largo de la historia de la Revolución Bolivariana.
We have achieved many victories throughout the Bolivarian Revolution. We have a deep democracy. We have proposed to the world a political model, a social model, and an economic model that allows the vast majority to have democracy and to close the inequality gap against, contrary to the individualistic model that exists in the United States, which results in the wealthy having more and the poor having less, thus widening the inequality gap. We propose this model to the world. They see that we were successful in a time when the country functioned normally. When they see this model begins to succeed, the sanctions begin, the aggressions begin. And despite the sanctions and despite the aggression, Venezuela, it was consolidating and has been consolidating itself as a sovereign political and economic model. And I think that in the end, the imperialism of the United States did not like that.
During Trump's 2024 campaign for president, he mentioned on several occasions that Venezuela has the lowest suicide rate of any country in Latin America, that Caracas as a city is safer than any major city in the United States. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me that if there's a country performing well, that you would decide to target its leader, kidnap him, and potentially plunge the country into chaos, which is exactly what he did. Is there any way to make sense of this?
Por lo mismo que te dije, Jackson, nosotros hemos propuesto un modelo.
For the same reason I have told you, Jackson, we have proposed a model that goes against the accumulation of large amounts of capital, a model that generates wealth, a model that should generate wealth for the country. The model that Venezuela proposes is a model where we must promote the overall well-being of the Venezuelan families and the world. We are a country of peace. We do not seek war. We seek peace. And as you were saying, they imposed sanctions on us since 2018. They've imposed sanctions on all of our production, to the oil, on the President of the Republic, on the government officials, on the families of government officials. It's a total harassment. And yet, we're here. Were we beaten down? Of course, we were beaten down. Did they affect the economy? Of course, they affected the economy. But after pandemic, we began a path of recovery, and that path has been consolidating. And then the aggressions and the threats started again. What Nicolás Maduro proposed was that model, and what the government of Nicolás Maduro proposes now and continues to propose today, it is that model. I believe it was a problem with Nicolás Maduro. There was a personal problem between the US imperialism and Nicolás Maduro, so much that they had to mobilize the entire army to come and get just one man and his wife.
What was your first reaction when you heard the news, 11 days ago now, that your father had been kidnapped by U.S. Special Forces?
Bueno, fue un día de mucha incertidumbre, una noche, una madrugada. Yo estaba en una casa.
It was a day of great uncertainty, a night, an early morning. I was in a house outside of the fort, a safe house. And when we heard about the attack, we started calling everyone, and I called my father. And he could see my call because he declined the call. And I said, well, he's moving to a safe place. I didn't know where he was. I had no reason to. He moved from safe places, and that was a safe place. Then, at some point in the early morning, when we started receiving information about the attack, I came to the conclusion. The idea that my dad might have been involved in the attack and might have died in it, it was a conclusion that came around 5 in the morning. And then we started receiving information from Delcy Rodriguez, Jorge Rodriguez, Diosdado, and people who arrived at the scene telling us, well, we didn't find a president. And then we received a message from the United States saying they have him captured. So when I received the news, I can tell you, I felt sadness, I felt anger, but I also thought, he's alive, they're alive. And that was like the light of hope that has pushed us to this day.
Why was your father in Cilia Flores presumably not in a safe house? I mean, everyone is still wondering how something like this could have happened. So I guess, were they in a safe house? And how is it that U.S. Special Forces were able to carry out a criminal operation like this? Yes, but without a single one of their soldiers being killed.
Mira, aún estamos en investigación, Jackson.
Look, we're still investigating, Jackson. We're still investigating. There was a lot of prior intelligence work. They confessed that. And we know they had spy drones following the president since early August, as they admitted. And I don't want to make any predictions or make any sensitive statements until the investigation concludes. Undoubtedly, we need to review what happened, how they got directly to the place where he was. But, well, they have the resources. It was a monstrous, overwhelming operation. It was like using a blowtorch on an anthill. I don't know if the analogy is appropriate, but we are a modest country, a country with a modest defense systems, and they use technology that has never been used before, and of which there are no records. We defended ourselves, or rather, we mounted a defense, but the force of the United States empire was crushing. We are in the midst of an investigation, and at some point, the truth will be revealed.
There's been many questions as to whether or not there was internal betrayal or just outright failures amongst, I guess, the plans that were put in place to protect your father's security. Are these matters still under investigation as well, or can you speak to whether or not any investigations thus far have bared any fruit with regard to looking into whether or not there may have been sabotage or treason? Has anyone been held accountable?
No puedo ahora comentarte nada de eso porque hay que ser responsable.
No. I can't tell you anything about that right now because we have to be responsible with the ongoing investigation. It's only been 11 days, and they're still gathering a lot of information. What I can tell you is that we defended ourselves, that the Bolivarian armed forces responded to the attack. There was a helicopter that was hit by Venezuelan fire. That helicopter is under investigation to see if it made it back to base or if it didn't. We're also certain that there were war crimes, that they were wounded, and that they were executed at the time of the president's capture. But I don't want to go into more detail than that because there is an ongoing investigation, and I don't want any information that I provide to hinder any conclusions or leads that might be guiding us to the truth. Beyond cultivating suspicions or identifying traitors or whatever, the country needs and the world needs to know the truth. And we are committed to search for the truth. And the truth will come out of the commission appointed to.
Well, God bless those fighters and security personnel that lost their lives in the attack. And may God protect their families moving forward. I want to ask you about what Trump really thought was going to happen upon launching an unprecedented and criminal attack like this. Did the United States believe that Venezuela would spiral into chaos or civil war? Because it seems like they don't really have a plan right now for their future idea of governing Venezuela, as Maduro or as Rubio and Trump have put it.
Sí, muy importante, Jackson, lo que tú dices.
Yes, very important, Jackson, what you say, because surely in the reports, they thought that the country could fall apart, that the country could enter into a civil war, that there could be a radical opposition force that could come out to protest, or that there could be a division in the Chavista forces or in the armed forces. So no, we are aware of the role we're playing, and Chavez trained us. We were trained by Nicolás, and the plan we're figuring out was Nicolás Maduro's plans. Nicolás Maduro had this scenario plan in all of the scenarios. Perhaps it was the most difficult. Perhaps one might have thought it was a far-fetched, but it was a scenario that Nicolás always told us about. And the first thing we did was to call to advocate and to continue building unity. Unity to maintain the country. Unity to maintain the institutions. We have a strong institutions, a country, an executive branch, an interim president appointed by Nicolás Maduro, who is at the head of the government, a parliament, a functioning national assembly, a functioning judicial branch, functioning courts, an electoral branch, people in the streets working, and an economic branch driving the country's economy. So first, unity to maintain peace. Second, the country cannot stop. We cannot paralyze it. The country must continue moving forward. It must continue building its economy, its society, its equality, its a model. And third, we must hold the banners so that Nicolás and Celia are returned to us.
Trump has already declared mission accomplished, just like George Bush declared mission accomplished 6 weeks after invading Iraq. Considering that President Nicolás Maduro had a plan, considering that Delcy Rodriguez and the Venezuelan government still stands today, are you expecting that the U.S. will stage further attacks maybe more airstrikes, maybe an invasion, something crazy like that? Or do you think they will, for the first time, try to negotiate in good faith with Venezuela?
Mira, estamos en conversaciones con ellos.
Look, we're in talks with them. The acting president is leading the direct negotiations with all of them. And we've received information from them that they aren't planning a second attack. We advocate for this to maintain the stability of the continent, to maintain peace. We are a country of peace. We never want war. It has never been our intention to go to war. It has always been to negotiate, and to negotiate in terms of sovereignty. Any country that wants to come and buy resources or invest in Venezuela has a free path. The only limitations are our laws, which are there to protect Venezuela. We have a constitution that establishes the protection of natural resources, and we don't want to attack anyone or be the victim of an aggression. We made that clear to the United States. We are here. We are aware that the most powerful empire that has ever existed in the world has us in sight, and we want to guarantee peace for the country. They know that the only guarantee of peace in Venezuela is with the Bolivarian government in the helm. That's why, in the end, they have to talk to us. That's why they couldn't impose any right-wing government or anyone. And we will continue to maintain the country's course with all the negotiations approved by President Nicolás Maduro and the National Development Plan, and we hope that we will be in peace.
I understand those negotiations are going on and that Trump made that promise, and Rubio followed that up saying they will not attack Venezuela again. But I remember recent history when the U.S. promised that they wouldn't bomb Iran, they were going to have more negotiations, and then they did just that. The U.S. just came out and announced that all U.S. citizens should immediately leave Venezuela. Is that not an indication of more military action that might be coming down the chute, or is this being announced for a different reason by the U.S. State Department?
Sí, nosotros sacamos un comunicado en el gobierno.
Yes, we issue a government statement in response to that notification from the State Department, rejecting it because Venezuela is a peaceful country, a safe country, and because international tourists from all over the world come here. They've been to Venezuela. There are natural wonders like Canaima, the national park. I hope, Jackson, I've heard you've come here. I hope you can come to Canaima, Los Roques, or Margarita Island, and see the Venezuelan plains. And we told the United States, look, it's a safe country. They told us it was a temporary measure and that it would disappear as relations normalize.
Well, I hope by the next time I come back, it's for victory celebrations that President Maduro and Cilia Flores are back home where they deserve to be.
Inshallah.
One question I have, though, is obviously the U.S. still maintains a naval blockade, a maritime blockade around Venezuela. Is this what the U.S. is doing? Is this going to dramatically impact Venezuela's relations with countries like China or Iran or Russia moving forward?
Ellos juegan a la guerra psicológica. La primera guerra.
They are playing a psychological war. The first war, beyond the economic war, was the psychological war, the war of lies. Of saying a lie 1,000 times until it becomes truth, in quote. And that is part of the psychological war, and part of the pressure the country is under. We have told them that we are willing to negotiate, that we are willing to talk, that we are open to U.S. investment here in the entire Venezuelan market. It's better for us to send oil to the United States than to Asia because of the proximity, the shipping costs, and the overall expenses. This could also mean more oil profits. So, this whole blockade is just rhetoric, and we've denounced it. Chavez denounced it in 2005, 2006, even 2002, and Nicolás Maduro announced it from his first day in office. Commander Chavez had just been laid to rest when we were already being attacked. In 2014, Obama opened the door with his decree declaring us an unusual and extraordinary threat. And that was the getaway to everything that had happened since. President Nicolás Maduro spoke with President Obama at the Summit of the Americas, and President Obama told him, "This must be a mistake, and we're going to fix it." But it wasn't fixed. They never did. So, in the end, it has been an intensified state policy by this administration that led to the aggression of January 3rd. Nicolás Maduro said it. "I wish we could have an embassy. I wish we could open an embassy now. We have countries here that have relations all over the world: Singapore, Vietnam, Malaysia, the United Arab Emirates, Turkey. The country I just mentioned have relations with United States, with Israel, with Iran, with Vietnam, with Russia, all at the same time. Venezuela is a peaceful country. I believe our motto is to have a good relation with all countries of the world, while maintaining our position and our flag. But I don't see a problem with opening a U.S. embassy here." The president said it himself. President Maduro told me in private once, "What's the problem with having a U.S. embassy here? An Israel embassy here and a Venezuelan embassy in Israel, parallel to the Palestinian one as well, and with a good relation with all countries of the world. Venezuela is a country of peace, and we want to overcome this to grant a country of peace and prosperity for all."
When acting President Delcy Rodriguez gave her first statement after the kidnapping of President Maduro, she said that the operation had a Zionist tinge to it. What do you think she meant by that?
Bueno, no se oculta.
Well, the intelligence cooperation between the United States and Israel is not hidden. Without a doubt, everything seems to indicate that the intelligence service of the United States and Israel cooperated here in Venezuela. That's like the sum of 2 + 2 = 4. And I don't want to go too deep because there's an ongoing investigation, but some things are being revealed.
Well, that's very interesting. I will look forward to hopefully seeing what the government puts out in their report from the official investigation into these sorts of matters. As a final question to you, obviously, it's insane, it's disgusting to everyone that President Maduro and Cilia Flores are currently imprisoned in New York City. Have you had the opportunity, or anyone in your government, have they had the opportunity to speak to President Maduro? And what is the legal plan right now to get President Maduro and Cilia Flores back to Caracas?
Mira, Jackson, ellos se llevaron.
Look, Jackson, they physically took Nicolás Maduro away. But Nicolás Maduro is still leading the way here in mind and in spirit, with his plans and with his voice. They have like a Mandela in there. It's going to be more costly for them to have Nicolás Maduro there. I can only imagine if that trial ever happens, Nicolás Maduro's defense speech in that trial is going to be historic. I can picture it. I can see it. Well, we'll have to see if it happens. I'm not hoping for it. I have faith and hope that we can have him free before then. And we have received some positive messages from him. He is serene. He has a lot of faith. He told us that he has a lot of faith in God. He has a lot of faith in the Venezuelan people and in the peoples of the world. and he has peace in mind. And when one has peace of mind, you may believe you were imprisoned, but your soul, your spirit, and your mind are free. And Nicolás Maduro today is a man with a free spirit, with a free mind, and soon he will be free among us.
Well, President Maduro and Cilio Flores are both fighters at their core, and I know they have not stopped fighting yet, and they won't. So, Nicolás Ernesto Maduro, thank you so much for joining me here today. I really appreciate it and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Jackson. It's my pleasure. It's my honor, and I want you come to Venezuela.
As soon as possible. I'm down. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.